Hi guys, welcome to the next part of your training within this coaching model and within this program of Mindset Mastery. So within this video today, I'm going to be giving you some absolutely life-changing advice and life-changing wisdom and knowledge that have not only changed my life, but I know has come from amazing experts around the world, has also changed the lives of many others as well. And within, obviously, our goal of working together is about giving you the power back on what to do for the rest of your life and how you can change the rest of your life going forwards, not just with our time working together, but in the future as well. What tools, tactics and things you need to remember in order to continue in that forward momentum, continue changing your life in different areas. And the key underlining rule when it comes to achieving our goals, achieving success, whatever success looks like to you, it always comes down to our mindset being 80% of the things that we do, action being 20%. Okay, so this is really, really important, and this is why for 80% of this program we are going to be focusing on your mindset as opposed to, actionable steps. Of course that's going to come, but the main thing we need to focus on together is your mindset. So within this video I'm going to be talking about two defaults within your brain. Okay, so the things that I'm going to be talking about within this session is backed by science, very true in terms of how our brain functions. Our brain has two different set of modes of thinking and being used, okay? And you might be able to relate to some of these that I'm going to go into. So we've got two main modes of our brains functioning. One is the default mode, which I like to think of it as like autopilot. And the other part is the direct mode. So this is when we are feeling very present within ourselves. We can think logically, we can think straight, and we're very direct in our approach, and we're very certain, very confident, and we know what we're doing. Whereas this autopilot mode is that part of our brain that sort of goes to the thoughts that make us feel unworthy, we're not good enough, that we can't do it, we maybe second guess ourselves, we might doubt ourselves, don't feel good enough, all of these kind of things, all of these self-doubts. Now, I'll just go into why we need both parts. So this default, this autopilot way of thinking, we probably could have got that from, our parents when we were very young. Maybe somebody taught us to think that way, maybe thinking the worst case scenario, that's sort of our go-to. We might have heard that from childhood, or we could have, bad things have happened to us throughout our life, and that is now our go-to way of thinking. We automatically assume that the worst case scenario is going to happen. Specifically, all that we need to train ourselves to do is to recognize when it's happening and switch it to something else. We have a default mode network within our brains, and this default mode network is that part of us that becomes very automatic. We do things very automatically, and if you think about it like this, in our day-to-day lives we have so much going on, we have so much to do. If we were to have to think logically about how to do every single activity that we did, how difficult would that be? How long would that take? How much energy would that take out of us? Think of it like when you're driving a car. The first time you're driving a car, it feels very unnatural. It feels difficult. You're thinking so much about, okay, well, which gear do I need to be in? Where do I need to look? Everything feels so unnatural. Whereas years on, when you've been driving for years and years, it feels automatic. You don't even have to think about it. And that is because we have trained within our brain the automatic response and how to build that habit up. Now it becomes an easy process. We don't have to think logically. It's the same when we're writing. If you're a right-handed person, in order for you to switch to your left hand, it will feel very unnatural. But after repetition, you will be able to teach your other hand how to write in the opposite hand. Okay, so that's to kind of give you a bit of a backstory on why we need this sort of default mode network within our brains? Why do we need that autopilot mode? And it is simply that. It's to make our lives easier and to form habits. So the problem lies then is when we have a certain thought that becomes a default mode network, meaning those thoughts that we think repeatedly. So maybe one day you got told that you weren't good enough at school or as a child, and that has now become your default mode way of thinking about yourself. So the more you've thought about yourself in that way, the more it's become automatic, and it becomes autopilot when you wake up. You don't even realise that you're doing it. It's like that mode where we're driving a car and we get to work and we think, God, I don't even remember driving the car today. That same autopilot mode network that's going on in our brains can also happen when it comes to negative thinking. Okay, so that is super important. Okay, so we could have a good thought or we could have bad thoughts, and usually our thoughts aren't always taking us in the best direction. So these thoughts are inflicting our reality. When we think in a certain way, our brain changes in a form to reinforce to us what our beliefs are, and that they are true. Okay. Whereas when we start thinking in different ways, our brains then seek out evidence to prove to us that that new belief is true. But when we think in the old mind, we are constantly being proven that the old way of thinking is true, and that, we're not good enough, because our brains will seek out evidence to prove that. The more, and this becomes reinforced the more and more we think about it. So this way of thinking becomes our default mode of thinking. Okay, so this part of the program is all about you getting in touch with your default mode of thinking. What is your story? What's your flavor, if you like, of that voice or that story that you believe about yourself? Because one thing that we know for sure, that thoughts are just thoughts. We don't have to take them all seriously, and we don't need to believe all of those thoughts that we have. We have thousands of thoughts every day, and those ones that we've repeated for so long have become ingrained in us. Okay, but just like we can learn to drive, just like we can switch from being a right-handed person to a left-handed person, means that we can also start thinking deliberately and off of autopilot. So this autopilot way of thinking is really useful when we're, putting our trousers on, or putting our work clothes on, washing the pots, making food, drinking a cup of coffee, brushing our teeth, all of those things. Because if we needed to think logically about them, it would take so much energy and so much of our time. Whereas when we're going about our normal day-to-day lives, when we're starting new projects, when we're trying to achieve a goal, when we're trying to do something different, we need our brain and our mindset to be on our side. So if it's in that default way of thinking, when we're going to a job interview, or we're starting something new, and it's those automatic thoughts are coming in like, you're not going to get this, you never succeed, you're not good enough, all of these types of things, that then is where we need to switch to the direct way of thinking. Now, the way that we do this, and within this module, I'm going to be giving you some homework. So this homework is so important, because the more that you can become aware of your thinking, your whole life will start to change, and I promise you that. Obviously, there's the visualization, and visualizing for at least a minute or 2 minutes can really change everything and shift your thinking as well, because again, it will train your brain to seek out evidence to prove to you that your new beliefs are true, and it will shape how you show up. It will shape who you believe that you are, the more that we visualize. But for the homework of this video, and this is something that I want you to take super seriously, because it's going to help not only just with your journey throughout the program, but from there on after. This is absolutely key. Notice also and remember that this is a process from going from autopilot way of thinking to direct to thinking on purpose. is a process, okay? It's not a one-time event. It doesn't just happen and then you never have to practice ever again. It is a process, but I promise you, the more that you practice this, the more it will become autopilot. Now, that is the key. At the moment, your autopilot way of thinking will be a lot of doubt, a lot of negativity. So we need to start thinking deliberately in another way to help match those goals that you have for yourself. So remember, it's a process. It's not a one-time event. Just like learning to drive isn't a one-time event. You don't just get in your car and you drive. It's a continuous process, okay? But the easier and the more you do it, the easier it will become. So this homework that I want you to do, and I want you to continue to do it, is to spend the day and notice the thoughts that you have about yourself. Notice when that inner critic comes up. Notice when it comes up and what it says. This inner critic that I keep referring to, this is the part of you that doubts yourself, that says you're not good enough, that doesn't believe that you can do it. All of these stories, I want you to notice when it shows up, okay? And I want you to commit to this, to do it for today. You know, if you're watching this at night time, commit to doing this for the rest of the night and tomorrow. Commit to yourself to notice when it comes up. And if you've got a pen and paper, I want you to write down what's your flavour of this story. Okay, what's your flavour of this inner critic? What does your inner critic tell you most of the time? You can't do it, you never succeed. What is your flavour? Okay, and I want you to notice it and write it down within the comments, send it to me, put it on the group chat, just post it anywhere. What I want you to do is just get to know your story. What are you hearing yourself say and not realising it? Because it's the moment that when we become aware of it, we can then start to change it. But up until this point, we might not have even been aware that those are the stories that are going off in our head. And when we think those thoughts, there's no wonder that we don't take action. There's no wonder that we feel rubbish about ourselves. Because those are the thoughts going on in our mind every single moment of the day, and we don't even realise it. So we need to start tapping into that and noticing it. And it's hard because we can't visually see it. But the more that you can separate yourself and notice those thoughts, write them down, the more you will be able to train your brain to think differently. So the next video is all about how to think differently and think on purpose, okay? But make sure that you've really focused on becoming aware of your thoughts after this video, watching this video, and like I said, send your thoughts away, and then go on to the next video on how to think on purpose. Okay guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, watch it as many times as you need to, and I will see you in the next one.